Okay, good afternoon again. I think we need to start the class for this evening. I will try my best not to keep you for all 4 hours, but again, it depends on you and the extent to which we can get through this evening's activity. So, good afternoon again, everybody. Welcome on board, Melissa. Welcome, Cindy. Jody was here
Afternoon,
before you.
miss.
All right.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Right. So we are going to be going into our class. I one of your colleague wants to find out a little bit of what is happening over this side of Jordan. So he has decided to join us this afternoon for our class, and he's none other than my namesake, Daniel Walters. So
Welcome,
this
Daniel.
go
Thanks
ahead.
for having me.
Next time you must it's a pity. Do you think we should allow him to go and register for this track? Would not be such a bad idea. All right. This evening we are going to be looking at planning an award-winning training seminar, as I titled it, and we are also going to be looking at the whole business of report writing. So when we talk about planning an award-winning training seminar, first question, anybody on the platform has ever had the responsibility to plan a seminar?
No.
No, miss.
Okay, Cindy has never done it. What about you, Melissa?
No, miss.
Okay, Jody,
Yes, miss, sorry, I missed that.
I'm asking if you have ever had the responsibility to plan a seminar.
Meetings, yes, but not necessarily a seminar.
You plan a meeting, but not necessarily a and there are two different things. What about you, Daniel? You're not going to be sitting down here and not talking to us, Can I tell you?
I've, I've, I've only ever been a patron for seminars. I've never had the privilege of planning one.
Okay, so this is virgin territory basically for everybody. All right. By definition, seminars are small group teaching and learning arrangements that use group interaction as a means of engaging the participants. And perhaps it is one of the most common events that planners have a responsibility to organize. Most seminars are scheduled either as a half day or a full day. So start thinking about one that you would have attended. How long was it? Sometimes they interchange with seminar and say workshop. And I find that seminars you go and they share information. Yes, there's participation because they may ask for a little feedback from you. But I find too that quite often when we go, we are not ready. Although it would the document or the invitation would have said seminar, when you go, it's actually a workshop because often you're asked to plan and with the mandate to go back to your spaces and put something in place. Or you might be a part of a working group that helps the person who would have organized the activity to put together something. So, for example, to let you know a little secret, so often you find that government will hire consultants to come in to do some things or to put together documentation. And they pay them some very big sums. But when they come, they are very smart. They recognize that the people that they are planning for, they need to plan with the people, for the people. And so they will invite you as the expert to a seminar or to a workshop, and then they will pick your brain, do a lot of brainstorming. So at the end of the day, when they put those documentation together, you are the ones who provide them with the information, even though your government or your organization might have thought that you were not qualified enough to do the work. So they get somebody in, pay them some big money, and you do the work and they collect the money. Yes. Basically, a lot of times that is what happened. You get invited to this, and you feel nice that you're being invited to this workshop and this seminar. But behind the scene, this is some of the things that actually happen. And I want to believe that having given that little bit of information, I am sure you guys are going to use it when you reach the top of the ladder too. But that's basically what it is. Successful seminars are a direct result of adequate previous preparation on the part of the organizer of the event. So there are some things that you need to have in place to ensure that your day is as productive as you would have liked it to be. So you need to establish clear goals. What will help you to establish those clear goals? The first thing you need to think about is, what do you want to achieve? Why am I having this seminar? What is my objective? What am I going to be expecting to come out of this? Do you want to build skills? So is it that you're looking at a whole business of capacity building, and you're also looking at psychomotor, because psychomotor has to do with the affective domain really in terms of your objectives. Do you want to empower your participants? Are you doing team building? Why am I doing this seminar? So even when you would have been asked by your organization to put a seminar in place, you need to ask yourself, why is it that they want this seminar? What is their end game? What is the objective that they're actually trying to achieve at the end of this? And your objectives determine who your audience is going to be, what the topics are for the seminar, where should the seminar be held or located, who are the persons who are going to be in attendance, and why would they want to be there, and what is the seminar's agenda. So your objectives are going to be the engine or the fuel that drive all of these 5 engines. If your objectives are not clear, then you are not going to get this part of it right. So my objective is to reduce mosquito breeding in a low income community. That's my objective. Who do you think my target audience would be? Or possible target audiences? Because sometimes, though we are going in with the same objective, we may have to do the seminar in segments. So who would be my ideal target population for a seminar that looked at reduction of breeding sources in a community?
The residents.
So would you do all the residents at the same time, or would you segment them?
Maybe you could segment them.
Why?
Become they could do a needs assessment, because most of them might not be at the same learning capacity in terms of intellectually. You might want to invite persons who have, what do I say, the person with authority, like community leaders, environmental health, the public nurse in the area. I don't know.
Oh, you mean you don't know?
But
I'm
that's what
sitting here listening to
that's
you
the
talking, and
persons
then
I
at
would
the end of it, you
engage.
said, I don't know. No, come
But that's
on.
the persons I thinking along the line that I would want to engage. You
All
might have
right.
to get the
Let me pick on somebody else. Jody, who else in that community would you want to engage if you are looking at source reduction?
At source reduction,
Yes, source reduction. We're talking about mosquito breeding sites.
community leaders, probably even the wholesale stores.
So Cindy would have already touched on community leaders. So she looked at community leaders.
The corner store, because that's the thing that would breed water. People probably buy it from the corner store. So if they have little signs every time they go to the corner store, it might be helpful.
The corner store. Shed a little more light on the corner store and mosquito breeding.
Like the tin sausage and the can and like the different ones that people put out to catch water and stuff, but they leave the cup. Sorry, man. I leave
But the
cup.
corner store will sell them those stuff in sealed containers.
Right, but you like how your bag that say please dispose of it properly. Don't let it go. Sorry, I can't cut something.
Jody?
Yes. I'm back. Sorry. Hello?
Yes, we are
Hello?
here. We are listening.
Okay. So, all right. Like the bottles will say, like, please recycle me. So a similar approach can be, since they're getting the containers from the wholesale store, like a little reminder to dispose of it properly, or if you're going to catch water in it, to put the oil on top.
All right. There's another very captive audience that you would have found in their community. And I'm not hearing anybody mentioning them.
The
Melissa.
bar?
Can I mention one? Sorry.
All right, go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, I was just Jody got me thinking about if it is I have like any garages in the community. So
Mm-hmm.
persons like because they might want to cut it broken down cars, tires, etc. Those could also serve as like breeding sites, and they also don't tend to the bushing very often. So that would also be, I guess, a stakeholder that you'd want to invite, as unrelated as it might seem.
All right, so thank you. So that's another captive audience there.
And
There's
maybe if you
another
have
one though.
farmers,
Farmers.
um, because they have water sources around the farm, if they have animals or if they have a water system. But is talk about them about coverage, schools, if there are schools within the area, you could capture that community in terms of garbage disposal, covering garbage, etc.
Exactly. And because I was really listening to hear whether or not persons would have recognized that the students in the schools, they are a captive audience. Because remember, we're talking about source reduction. And there are times when the children are the ones who do some of the disposal in places where they ought not to dispose of some of these things. So once you have them as a captive audience now, and you would have you taught them how to do the things, then you'll find that they can become a part of that prevention strategy that is utilized. So the objective that you have is going to really determine who is it your target audience is going to be. There are times when you may try to do a whole population approach. There are times when you have to segment your audience because the way you deliver is going to vary according to the different audiences. So take, for example, if you look at something like COVID-19, which we went through a few years ago, the way the way you pitch the message could not be the same for everybody in every regard. So there are times when you can have a whole population set of messages, but when it comes to like the etiology and all of those things, what you would say and do with the medical or the clinicians would not be the same that you would do with persons who are non-clinicians. So even your audience determine the type of messages, the wording of the messages, and all of those things that you have to do. It also helps to determine the topic that you would use for your seminar. Location again is going to be also based on your objective. And so if you are doing like as just the school and you're looking at the source reduction for mosquito breeding, it would be ideal for you to have them in a setting where they can do little games or little activities, for example, like search and destroy. And I say that because I remember some years ago when we had a dengue outbreak here, and we were looking at the school as a population for the prevention strategy as one of the primary ones. We took them out of their regular school environment and we had them at this big Heart Academy training center where they had this huge auditorium. So there were different schools that were represented there. And part of the activity was that they were to go around the compound and identify breeding sites, then come back and report and say, based on where they found those breeding sites, what would have been the best approach in terms of reducing mosquito breedings. Of course, there were prizes and there were puzzles and there were other things that they do. But so we made learning fun. That at the end of the day, they would have enjoyed themselves, but they would also have gotten the information that we need them to get, as well as the skill, because when they go out to look, that is a skill that they are developing, and so they can go and identify the necessary breeding sites for the mosquito reduction. So all of those things will help to determine what you do with your different audiences. So what we really need to do is to capitalize on opportunities. When we look at the whole business of globalization and technology, it has given us the opportunity to conduct seminars in a variety of ways. COVID-19 came, and all of a sudden, everything is on platform now. As a result of which some of us can't even get to sleep in the evenings because when you would have finished and you would have gone home, you hear that you're having a meeting and the meeting is starting at 7:30 and you're like, but I am tired, but because you're home, the meeting starts that way. So because of the technology, there are many ways in which now we can reach our population without sometimes necessarily having them right there in front of us in the physical audience. We have to be resourceful organizer. Governmental or non-governmental organizations, there must be vigilance and and they must also be receptive to embrace these changes and use them to their advantage. Anybody can tell me which organization had a serious problem with Facebook and other platforms until COVID dropped and it had to be embraced? Anybody want to hazard a guess?
And the Ministry of Health.
No,
I'm JCF because they're
no.
Churches.
The churches, that's right. Many of the pastors cuss out Facebook and many of those other platforms. And then when COVID-19 dropped, they had to embrace. And a lot of persons criticize them for it. And I often said to persons, we have to look at it a little deeper than that. We have to look at what it represents when some of those platforms started. What did it represent? What is it we were seeing on those platforms? So the resentment that they had for those platforms need to be placed within a context, because all of a sudden here was this thing on the airwaves, on the international scene, where persons are now able to showcase themselves without clothes almost, and a lot of some of those other things. And you find that there were some church members of churches that were gravitating towards it because people like new things and we like to try out things and we like to be a part of. And so they would have had church members who were gravitating towards some of these platforms, and what they were showcasing was not something that was reflecting the moral standard for which the churches would have been promulgated among its congregants. And so they would have developed that resentment for it. But then when COVID-19 came, we recognized that while it might have its negative component, it also had advantages that could be utilized to help them to reach their congregation who were not able to come out for the physical attendance in the churches. And so much so that now nearly every church you can think of has a presence on social media, have a presence on YouTube with their different services that they have in their congregation. So there's an old saying that it say that out of every evil there cometh good. So here was one that was deemed as evil, but it has provided a platform. So those persons who are shut in are not able to go into the physical space, they can still enjoy their morning services or evening services, as it were. So government and non-governmental organizations have to recognize that we have to embrace some of the technology. We may not like it, but we just need to sit and look at it and look at how we can use it to our advantage. Our main goal, or the main goal, needs to be to communicate your topic to an audience of mixed backgrounds and also of mixed interests. And you want to present your information in such a way that everyone can understand. And when they leave the seminar, they will have learned something that they can take back with them to their different spaces and make a difference. Because when you pull persons into a setting for a seminar or a workshop, you want to let them leave there with something that they can become agents of change when they get back to their spaces. And so we have to look at the process. How do we go about doing that? There are a number of activities that are involved in preparing for a seminar, and these activities can be organized in three main headings: the preparation phase, the implementation phase, and of course the evaluation phase. Often, though, I find that when we go to seminars and they would have asked us to fill out an evaluation form, Most of us tend not to do that. We can't be bothered. But it should be told is that if we were doing the ones doing the seminar, we really would have liked to get that feedback from our audience. So do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. You'd have like that feedback because it is going to help you going forward. So provide them with that feedback so that it can also help them going forward. In the preparation phase, here are some things that we need to do. We have to plan our budget. We have to look at the topic that we are going to be using or a theme that we may be working with. We have to secure our facilitators. We have to look at the venue that we are going to. We have to finalize these details, contact our participants, do follow up, finalize the participant list, and look at the resources that are needed. And we are going to be looking at these in a little more detail. When we think about the budget, funding is an integral part of any event. Money talks. If you don't have the resources, then there's so much that you can do and no more. But with resources, there's a lot that can be accomplished. The amount of funding available for the hosting of an event will determine a number of factors in planning your event. It is going to determine how many persons you are going to be able to invite. It is going to determine venue, if it is a venue that is going to require cost. It is also going to determine the kind of resources that you have access to, because without the funding, you may not be able to have access to some of these resources. So you think about the venue. Is it a paid venue? If it is a paid venue, what is the cost? Do you need to shop around to look at several different venues, select the ones that are most appropriate, and then look at a costing and select from among those? What about the duration? How long will this seminar be? Is it going to be for half a day? Is it going to be for a full day? And remember, if you are renting a venue, they are going to be asking you your arrival and departure time. And if you go too much over the departure time, you may incur additional cost, because these venues really charge for the places by the hour, and so you have to sometimes be very tight in what is it that you're doing. If it's a free venue, then you may have a little more room to maneuver, where you may be able to go overtime and not worry about additional costs that you did not budget for. How many participants you are going to be having? Again, your budget is going to guide that particular decision, because you have to think about the food that you are going to have to provide, or the refreshment, how much money is it going to cost, whether or not the resources that you have available can cover that particular cost. What about equipment? I talk about the different medium through which we can do our presentation. We have to look at those. And when we talk about equipment, you need to visit the venue and to take careful note of the venue. Because I don't know if anything is worse than going to a venue with the intention of doing a PowerPoint presentation, and when you go, they don't have a solid wall, and it's decorative blocks that are there. You can't present with decorative blocks at the background of what you're doing, because the holes are there. It is going to punch hole in your image, and it is not going to make for good reading. So you really need to visit the venue that you are going to be using, and do a really walkthrough to see what is there and how you can manipulate. If the walls are painted with some kind of color paint that you cannot use the wall as a projection, then you have to think about whether or not you are going to be able to carry a screen, or you may probably need to get like a white sheet and cover the wall so you can do the projection. So you have to take a lot of things into consideration. Informational packages and material. What is it am I going to need for this seminar? Do I need educational material that I can leave with my participants? That has to be given consideration. Availability of refreshment, again, your budget and the availability of funds will determine whether or not you are able to provide this. So if you are going to be having a seminar and you know that you don't have any funds to provide lunch for your participants, make it a half-day seminar. If you are going to go beyond that half day, then you need to provide refreshments for your participants. And of course, last but not least, is your presenters or your facilitators. You have to look at the persons who have experience and expertise in the area that you want to have that seminar in, so that they can bring their A game to the table. You can't just pick anybody and ask them to be a facilitator for you. At all times, you have to think about the experience and the expertise and how it can add richness, and it can actually speak with authority to the area that you wish to cover. Our theme or our topic, the seminar topic, should address an issue of interest to your participants. If they have absolutely no interest in going, simply come eat the food, go through the door, and you'd have gained absolutely nothing for that kind of investment. So your topic should give birth to the objectives too that you are going to be looking at, and your objective in turn will guide the scope that you want to look at in the seminar that you are doing. When we think about focus, now a topic that conveys messages and presents so information is easily digested. In other words, don't go too high flown. Don't go above your participants, because if you do that again, you are not going to get the kind of returns that you would like to see on your investment. And planning a seminar going to require a lot of resources, so you really want to have returns on your resources. What material do I need? Do I need to do bullet of the main topics? And I know that as lecturers, we do not practice what we preach. And the reason why we have not been practicing what we preach is because you have an exam at the end of the period. And so we tend to put too much information on our slides. Normally, what you really need to have are bullet points, and you speak to that. But if we do that, when you go to study and to do your review, you are going to probably fall short of information. So we tend to put a lot of stuff on the slides, but ideally, we ought not to be putting so much information on our slides. So please, just a note of warning, when you have a presentation to do, that you need to remember to don't come with your slides overcrowded with information. And also, don't let them be like sentences that just keep going on and on and on. You really need to have that bullet to break, and its sentences our phrases are best to be used, but not this long dialogue that you are going to be reading from top to bottom. You have to try and avoid that when you're doing your presentations. Backup information with human and engage participants' attention. So get facilitators who don't come to the table and it is just one long drone going on and on and on, and the next thing you know, all of your participants are fast asleep. And I'm actually hoping that I'm not putting you to bed, especially like how we are not in the physical space where I can see those who are nodding off. All right? Try to be familiar with the material ahead of the seminar. So even if you are not the facilitator for the different sections or topics, try to be familiar with the material, because sometimes some questions may be asked of you after the seminar is finished. And if you don't have a handle on it, you may not be able to field some of these questions. So at the start of our seminar, this is really very, very important, our icebreaker. How do you get your participants to relax and feel at ease, and so that you can just move into, especially if the persons are coming from varying backgrounds, they are sitting at a table where they do not know each other. You need to do some icebreaker that will help to loosen up the tension in the room, so that persons can be more relaxed and willing to have that conversation. And so as your icebreaker is really going to be very, very important. It need to be interactive. It need to be something that helps to generate some amount of laughter. All of those things, you need to get your participants to just relax and enjoy the session. Selection of your presenter. It is crucial to the success of your seminar. So you need to select speakers who are at top of their fields, persons who have in-depth knowledge about the area. Because if they don't have that in-depth knowledge, we are living in an era now where people have access to all sorts of information. And sometimes when you invite persons to a seminar, those who have the time will take the time out to go look up some information on the topic. So if your presenters are not at their A game, then questions can be posed to them that they may not be able to feel in an adequate way. So really look at who your speakers are and select persons who are at the top of their game. And you need to ensure that your presenters are aware of your seminar objectives. I don't know if anything can be worse than you ask somebody to come and do something at your seminar and you did not brief them properly. So they come with their own little stuff that has nothing at all to do with the matter at hand. So you really don't want to have that happen. So when you're sending them the memo or the correspondence, inviting them, let them know what the objectives are so that they have a clear idea what is it that they should cover when they come. So you give them an idea of the topic, the objectives, and the other information that will better guide the way they do their presentation. And it will also determine the kind of visual aids and the equipment that they may need to be utilizing as they come to you. Some points that we need to keep in mind. Expertise, strong background knowledge of the topic. That's one of we spoke about it already. They also need to have the ability to convey their knowledge to a large audience. Because sometimes you find that persons really understand their field very well, but somehow they don't have that ability to share that knowledge that they have in a way that will enthuse, motivate, and stimulate their audience. So you need to really pay attention to that as well. Unbiased and non-partisan. We need to avoid inviting speakers that are aligned with a particular cause or a particular group unless the cause that you are having the seminar for is the one that they are aligned to. Why? Because they will come with their own agenda and they will derail what you have in mind or what you would have planned, and so you would not have achieved the objective that you set out to achieve. You need to think about your facilitators. Do you need to give somebody an honorarium? That needs to be a part of your budget so that when the time comes, you have this funding available. Do they have to get travel expenses? That is something that we have to think about. And you need to identify alternative speaker as a precaution. So we think about the honorarium, we think about the travel expenses, and these are questions that you need to find out from your presenter before they get there. And I say this because I remember we were having a little conference once and would have invited somebody to come, and the person just nicely listened and tell us that we have to pay them to come, which we knew we would have to do, but we also would have to pay them traveling. And so we actually had to change because while we would have made budgeted for the honorarium, we did not budget for the traveling cost. And so we had no money in the budget because it was already approved. So we had no money in the budget to pay for the traveling. And so we had to defer and use somebody else. Why you need to have an alternative speaker in mind? Because anything can happen before your seminar. Is that a person can take ill and cannot come, and so you are going to be left with that void. So it is good to have a backup plan when you're planning these seminars. When we think about our target group, the characteristics of our participants will influence the structure, the content that we are going to share, as well as the activities that will become part of. I notice I switch from seminar to workshop now because we tend to use those two interchangeably. So what is the size and composition? How many persons are you going to have at your seminar? Is it going to be all females, or is it going to be all ladies, or is it going to be all men? Is it going to be a mixture? Is it going to be a mixture of old and young, or in between? You just have to look at the composition of your audience, and the objectives usually guides this particular decision as well. You have to think about age, ethnicity, gender, educational level. Those things are very, really, very important when you're planning your seminar. Because remember, we talk about being culturally competent, and we want to be able to do that. And so we have to give some consideration to our age range persons, the background and all of that. What is their interest in the topic? Do they have an interest? Or is it that the seminar is to stimulate that interest? Again, the objectives are going to be guiding that. What are the needs of your target audience? How to mitigate problems that may arise. So you have to think about, there's an old saying that says that anything that can go wrong will go wrong, especially at the last minute. So even when we are inviting persons, we have to anticipate some of these issues and put contingency plan in place so that should in case they arise, we can actually deal with it. What is the best way to get the message across? What are the best ways to present? Do we need to do a PowerPoint presentation? Or do we need to do a video and then have discussion around the video? Or do we need to put a scenario together and have people role playing? All of those things have to be given consideration in terms of the modality for delivery of that. So we have a whole thing. I mean, it's a lot of work to do seminars, but it's exciting and it can be fun. We need to contact our participants. Initial contact with persons identified to attend the seminar with further detail of the seminar, and that is going to include deadlines for them to give their response, the overview of the seminar or the outline that you often need to share with your participants, requirements for eligibility. So if it is not open to any and everybody, then the criteria for attendance need to be very, very clear. How many participants can be accommodated? So if you know that you are going into a venue that can accommodate no more than 25 persons, then that needs to be in the advert as well, so that persons know it's a first come, first serve, and you need to monitor the registration if you are getting pre-registration prior to the day of the event, so that you can say to persons that we are now oversubscribed and we're not able to register anybody else. That kind of thing, so that people will know. What you don't want is a whole lot of persons turn up and you're not able to accommodate them because the venue is not adequate for so many persons, and you had not said that in your advertisement or in the invitation for attendance, and so they come and they can't be accommodated at all. Keep a checklist, and every day you go through and check off as you get closer to the seminar, so that you can know that you have not left anything out. And sometimes follow-up is necessary, so you need to liaise with participants to ensure that information that was disseminated was received, and to ascertain the potential participants who are attending the seminar and remind them of the start time and date of the seminar. We also want to create room for the unforeseen, Murphy's Law. So you want to create a schedule of events that is going to allow you as well as the participants some extra time to arrive in case of delays due to weather or traffic. And always try to get to your venue ahead of your participants. Be there to receive them rather for them to come and to be there waiting on you. Not to say that things cannot happen that may cause that to be the case, but it should not be the norm, it should be the exception. For maintenance of interest, you want to plan regular breaks so that participants retain smaller segments of information instead of losing focus. And I'm sure you are sitting down there like, hear Mr. talk about them something here. And when she done, she have one class for a whole 2 hours and she not stop talk. Yeah. We know that we're doing some of the things that we are not to do, but in the interest of time for you to get as much information as possible, we have to step outside of the norm, but it is not the ideal. When we prioritize, if you do not have enough time allocated for all of the training required, you need to prioritize information on the agenda and remove less critical elements from the schedule. So we have to have our fingers on the pulse of things. Secure your venue ahead of time. What type of seminar will influence the venue? Sorry, the type of seminar will influence the venue that you are going to be selecting. Ideally, if you can, have a logistic planner, especially if it's a seminar that is going to involve a lot of persons. When you have somebody to take care of the logistics, it kind of lift some of the pressure from off you. So ideally, you're planning a seminar. It is good if you can have a little team working with, and different persons have different responsibilities. That helps to bring everything together in a much better way. Facilities should be able to comfortably accommodate your participants and the needs of the presenters and fit within your budget. Site visit, as I said before, is very important. When we are going to be planning our seminar, we need to think about the cost. We need to look at the capacity. We need to look at security, computer accessibility, internet access, parking and travel arrangements, lighting and acoustics, audiovisual requirements, as well as the temperature. All of these things are important because you don't want to plan a seminar without thinking carefully about the cost and then at the end of the day, you do not have the funding to carry through after you'd have expended all of that time and energy planning for this particular event. What's the capacity in terms of seating at the venue? Do you have security so if persons drive and they come, they can be relaxed knowing that nobody's going to borrow their car without their permission when they are in the seminar? Do they have access to computer? Well, no, everybody have then like a laptop or then tablet, so they tend to walk with it. But what you want to ensure though is that there is access to internet services. Many venues these days, the internet service comes with the package, but you do have one of those few places where they do not give you the internet service as a part of the package and they expect you to pay separate and apart from it when you get to the venue. So those are things that you have to also seek to ascertain prior to the day of implementation. So you want to finalize your details now. So you want to determine the length of the seminar. Is it going to be half day or full day? What about the modes of delivery? What about the equipment that you're going to be needing? Do you need handouts or any other learning material? You also want to look at whether or not you're going to have break and refreshment, if there are going to be deadlines, and if there are going to be caterers that are needed. All of those things you have to take into consideration when you're finalizing the details of your seminar. And we are always encouraging you to have a resource checklist. So you need to look at all the things that you need. And so a few days or so before the seminar, you start going through and check off to see if everything has been taken care of. So you want to look at whether or not you need a projector, if it's a laptop or if there's a screen. Do I need to have those? What about stationery? Do I give my participants handouts? Do I have to have name tags or need to have name tags for them? Do I have internet access, as was said before? And so the list can go on in terms of what is it that you require for the successful implementation, and do your checklist so that you can check off and see whether or not all of these things are in place. All bills, if possible, should be paid before the commencement of the seminar. You do have some seminar venue that wants their money to be paid upfront and not after the use of their facilities. Government is not noted for doing this. So when you're working with government, it can be a little tricky for you because they are not noted to pay before service is given. Government like to pay after the fact. So this can be a challenge for you. And you really want to avoid any embarrassing situations. So when I was on the field doing all of these things like seminars and workshops, I always walk those purchase orders through the system. I don't just drop them off on somebody's desk and leave them and expect them to do what they ought to do. I walk them through the system. Because what I really never want is to face the embarrassment of having gotten service, because not many people are willing to give government service because they don't get paid upfront. So when you find a few willing persons ready to give that kind of service, you have to ensure that you don't use their services and then weeks on end they cannot be paid after they would have given their service. So you have to try to ensure that everything is in place for that and walk the invoices and the purchase orders through the system to ensure that things can go smoothly. So unless there are special arrangements for payment between the organizer and the recipient, you need to ensure that all of these things are done and that the things are ready for disbursement. On many occasions, we would have completed a seminar, and the following day we could call our service providers and tell them that the checks are ready and they can come and collect. On other occasions, it was not the easiest of tasks to get the accounting department to prepare those checks. You just have to be sitting on their backs until it is done. Now it's time for implementation. Arrive early at the venue, as I said before. Ensure a furniture arrangement is the way you'd have liked it to be. If you need to have name tags, make sure that these are ready and waiting to be given as soon as the participants arrive. If they need information packages, all of those should have been prepared ahead of the seminar date. Whatever equipment and material and registration form, everything that you need for the implementation, you should try to have those in place so that when your participants come, you don't have to be searching. When they get there, you are going to formally welcome them. You are going to do a little introduction as you address them, and you're also going to want to introduce your presenter when they are coming on board. So formally welcomes all participants to this seminar. Give a brief synopsis of what the seminar is all about. It's the same thing as sharing the objectives with them. Explanation of the roles in the seminar. What if they have a role to play, then you let them know up front. Answer any queries that the participants may have, and you also need to share with them the time frame for the meeting. So you need to share with them the meeting schedule. We're looking now at seating arrangements, and there are many seating arrangements that we can utilize. So we have the circular one, where your chairs are placed in a circle if interactive discussion of a fairly small group will be the primary activity of the seminar. And even before I go any further into the seating arrangements, let me hear from you. If you are invited to a seminar, what kind of seating arrangement would you prefer to see when you go? Melissa?
Well, Miss, I guess it says as it depends on the nature of it. If it's interactive, the circular one could work just fine. But if it's not something where they're just disseminating information, no need to sit down in a circle.
All right. Jody,
Honestly, classroom setting.
you provide a classroom setting.
I do.
All right. Cindy?
As Melissa said, depends on the nature, on the content. I like classroom setting. I like the circular setting because sometimes it seems more personal and interactive. But I like classroom setting because you have the tables, and then I always have bags and bottles.
Typical female,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so depending on what type of workshop and what material we're gonna be and activities.
All right. Krishna.
Agreeing with what Melissa has said, it depends on the nature of it and how interactive you want these sessions to be.
Or you could have like Miss the long tables like that could seat persons in groups. That's an option as well.
Okay, that's another setting. Daniel, which one you prefer?
In a similar vein to everyone else, if it is going to be a highly interactive setting, then one where it is that everybody can look at each other like the circular seating arrangement is pretty good. If it's just going to be a stream of presenters, then the usual platform where it is a kind of have a lectern of sorts and you facing the crowd, that makes more sense.
All right. But for me, while I value the different seating arrangements and what they bring to they are add to the seminar, I like to take notes. So at all times, I like to have a table in front of me. But some of these particular settings don't allow for that. But I really love to take notes. The semicircular arrangement, and this provides all attendees good viewing and also give the presenter audience contact. So the presenter has a high audience sensitivity with greater eye contact with them, and the center aisle are primary seating areas. The aisles are moved to the sides, and all chairs face the presenter, and this is ideally for projection device chalkboard or flip chart will be used. Some of these things we don't use them anymore, like a chalkboard and a flip chart. Yeah, they're really becoming obsolete in no uncertain terms. But you find though that sometimes you go to some of these seminars and they have the table like a banquet hall setting, and they are forever putting persons to sit with their backs to where the screen is, and so it makes for uncomfortable seating whenever that happens. They are really not thinking about the participants and what needs to be done in that regard in many ways. This one is called a herringbone, and these are theater or classroom seating positioned at angles or curves to face the stage. So although it is the classroom setting, the way the tables are arranged, it allows for that wider thing. The setup is both unique and functional because each member of the audience can look straight towards forward and have a good view of the stage, and it's the next best thing they say to semicircular. So if you can have a semicircular, then the herringbone is the best or the best option. This one, we all of us, I think, are very familiar with this one. We have where you have the straight rows of chairs facing the stage without any tables at all, and this one is called the heater. I'm not so sure why it is hot, but that's the name that they would have given to this particular kind of seating arrangement. It allows for the highest audience density and keeps them closest to the front to create increased audience responsiveness. So again, depending on what you are doing, where you are going, we select a seating arrangement to fit whatever. This is the one that all of us are most times comfortable with. The theater setting where you have the rows of chairs and they are placed along narrow tables, and you lose some audience density though in this kind of arrangement, but you gain comfort and writing ability for the attendees. And for long seminars, this layout works best. If it's going to be a full day, to be sitting down and you don't even have somewhere to kind of rest your arm, it's not ideal. So depending again on the length of the seminar, it also helps to determine the kind of seating arrangement. And this is the one I was talking about, the banquet or the round table, where people's back are turned to the stage and the screen, and they have to be angling themselves for to really to be able to see what is happening. So it's a series of round tables set up with about 8 or 10 chairs, and this is a good setup for meals and other networking among the people at the table. So it has its advantages, even though there are some disadvantages. It has a drawback of severely limiting seating capacity, spreading the audience too far away from the stage, and it forces half the audience to crane their neck or rotate their chairs if they want to see what is happening on the screen. This
One
one
work for the
you
one that have projectors. That's what I've seen some places do. They have the screen so that if you're not looking directly at the stage, you can just look at the screen closest to you.
okay. I've never been so fortunate.
Okay.
So if I'm going to seminars, I try to get there early since I have absolutely no idea what the seating arrangement is going to be like. So when I get there early, I can select my seat that is most comfortable while the presentation is going on. This is what they call a U shape, with the rows of long, narrow tables shaped to form the U, and it's best for interaction between attendees as in meeting, but it is least effective if you want attention placed on the presenter. So when you come up for your oral exams at the end of the academic year, this is the kind of seating arrangement that you are quite likely going to find in the classroom for your oral exam, the U shape. Okay, so at least you have an idea how to see the thing. So we are going to be sitting on one side. They are going to be sitting straight across from us, so that
That
we
sounds
can eyeball each
intimidating.
other. Yeah?
That sounds intimidating.
No, we want to be able to eyeball each other. You don't want to see our faces when you're talking to us?
No, because some person have a face that makes you lose your thoughts. So I prefer not to see them.
To be forewarned is to be forearmed, right? So I'm just letting you know from now that when you walk into that classroom for the oral exam, this is quite likely the seating arrangement that you're going to see. So get your headspace ready and prepared for it. Okay?
Noted.
All right. The presenter is always looking away from the majority of the attendees, and there's a gap between all of them, but that's the arrangement. Methodologies for your seminar. The methods used in the workshop, you see, are using them interchangeably, must suit the objectives of your workshop. Objectives, I'm going to go through and take the objectives from the workshop and put in seminar. I'm really going to do it. Objectives can be classified as knowledge, skill, or attitude. Presenting the information. Brief presentation followed by a question. This method works well when participants know enough about a topic to generate stimulating questions, but sometimes they will sit there and don't ask. So you may have to be the one to pose the questions and get that feedback from them, but always encourage them to ask questions. Some of your facilitators may don't like to be interrupted when they are presenting, while others don't mind persons stopping them and asking questions. And often they tend to provide this information with their audience at the beginning of their presentation. You may hear some person said, can you record your questions and I will take them at the end of the presentation, while some persons will say, you can stop me at any point and ask me whatever questions you have. So it will vary from individual to individual. This method works well when participants know enough about the topic, as I said before, and presentations with these designated respondents assign specific tasks to various participants. So you can assign tasks that engage the learners. So you may ask somebody to be a rapporteur who is going to be listening to the presentations and summarizing and sharing back with the participants, that kind of thing. So you can give them varying roles as you think about planning. A panel discussion is one way in which seminar information can be presented, and this is an informal discussion among members of a selected group in front of an audience. This method is suitable for teaching large groups where there are too many people in the audience for the kind of audience interaction that you would have preferred. It is not ideal for encouraging interaction in a small group. Another method that you can use for your seminar is a debate. And this is an engaging method for presenting material, since the participants themselves are the ones who are sharing, so they are actually taking part. Debaters should be encouraged to focus on convincing one another of their argument rather than on discrediting or attacking their opponents. So all of this groundwork would have been laid already, so that you go, go cuss off the person over there. So let's say, for example, Daniel says something that Jody didn't agree with, and Jody is going to take on Daniel and just push him out of the room with her words and her mouth because a foolishness talk. No, you have to allow persons to share from their perspective. You can counter it, but in countering it, you still have to maintain respect for your opponents and do it in such a manner that they do not feel offended. Okay? Preparing your media. This method is used to stimulate conversation and not to replace it. And we talk about prepared media. So a popular form of videotaped presentation to use with small groups is the trigger tape. And so it can be a brief dramatic presentation that triggers interaction among your participants. So it can also serve to as an icebreaker. Present a little video clip and then have persons discuss issues related to what is in the video clip. But the video clip should also be something that feeds into your seminar topic, so that you can just flow from one area into the other. Slides or graphical information can be used this way as well. Some may require reading. So may prepare material and they have to read it ahead of time before they get to the seminar. And so that when they come, they already have some background information that they are going to share. Or you may have a position paper, and the participants would be required to write a position paper or statement, a few paragraphs or one page stating their position or response. So you would come with something almost like a moot. So this is your position, and then person would be asked to respond whether they are in support of it or if they are not in support of it, and say why they have taken the position that they would have taken. Sometimes during the seminar, persons have been given brief assignments to do some amount of reading and then come back to the bigger group for discussion. So even like when a lecturer presenting, and they would have had breakout rooms, and you'd have been given an area to sit among yourselves and then come back to the bigger group and do some presentation for discussion. At the end of it, although we need to evaluate what we would have done. Why do we need to evaluate seminars? Anybody want to share why you think it is important to evaluate the seminar? Hello? Can I go around?
So we know what works and what didn't work.
What are some methods that can be used to evaluate your seminar?
Miss Look, has some there a pre a post test. A quiz. They could
Oh, so you're actually reading what is on the slide. Cool.
well, Miss, you ask, and those are the things that we would do.
But you know, sometimes you have them right there in front of your audience and they didn't see them.
Well, yes.
Have a dedicated class, miss. Everybody is very engaged.
Thank
And
you,
I say,
Daniel.
sometimes the information is right there on the screen in front of them, and you ask a question, and they don't even realize the information is there. But you guys are on the ball, you are picking up. Yeah, so there are many ways in which we can do the evaluation. The pre-post test, when you do the pre-test, it will let you know where they are. At the end of it, you'll see whether or not learning would have taken place. It just sometimes they may have a quiz, or it can be a case study that they sit in their little group and they discuss and they pull apart and come up with solutions too. And sometimes it can be a Likert scale, whether you agree, disagree, strongly disagree, disagree, that kind of thing, for them to actually think. But when it comes to children, though, what are some good evaluative tools that you can use with children? Because you don't want to use these with the children. This is not fun, not for the little ones.
You could
Again, tell me, what did you learn?
Yes, you can ask them that question and they'll verbalize anything that you can use graphically that you think they would gravitate towards and love.
Like the smiley face, I guess,
Yes,
flat
the
face, frowny face.
emojis, right? And you put them up
Oh,
and they'll go and tick on the one that best reflects how they feel about the thing. So you get that feedback from them. And you can use it with adults too, you know. You'll be surprised the adults sometimes become children when those little things are up there. They just find it fun to just go and tick where they. And so as we come to the end of this particular presentation, and we're finishing a little bit ahead of time, yes. This little one, the girl said she wants somebody who has a degree. And this wise little young man say, girl told me that she want a man with a degree. I told her I have 4 degrees. And there are his 4 degrees that he is very proud of.
Well, she never said what type of degree.
well
No,
read.
she did
Well
not. She
read.
just wants somebody with 4 degree, with a degree. He did not just have one, he has 4. So he was showing off his degrees. And he said, why are you talking during the exam? So that is a teacher. I hope I don't look like a lady here, you know. So he said, why are you talking during the exams? And the little young man said, question 4 says to discuss. How can I discuss without talking? No, I beg of you, don't listen to this little one and go discussing in the exam, okay? Discussion must take place between your pen and your paper and your brain and not your colleagues beside you. And this is the quote of the night. Popcorn is pre-prepared in the same pot, in the same heat, in the same oil, and yet the kernels do not pop at the same time. Do not compare yourself to others. Your turn to pop will come. And this is so very true. Anybody ever tried doing popcorn in the microwave?
Yeah, man. Then you have to put it in back for extra minutes.
That's the
Yes.
conventional method. No,
Not
no.
all of them pop at the same time.
And you say like the old time method.
Even when you use the old time method, like putting the pot on the top of the stove, they all don't pop at the same time. So others may be moving a little faster than you are. It doesn't mean that you will not pop. Your turn will come. And this one said, joke of the day. I hope none of you have any children like this. Mother says to son, you are 35 years of age. You should be on your own. You should have a house and at least 2 cars by now. Son says to mother, mommy, you are Christian and you and me well know said Jesus are over 2,000 years old and him still live in a him father house. Look here, no stress me out. All I want to do is to be like Jesus.
Ah, Mr. can't fault him. He has merit in what he's saying.
He has a merit, but I will be putting him out merit and no merit. So I hope none of the children will see this and store it in their cranium and wait on you to tell them to go outside and make life on their own and rock this one back on it. Because when you drop this now, you really don't have an answer that you can come up with for this particular one. All right. So those are my few words for planning a seminar. Our next stop is supposed to be our report. So the question I want to ask the class now, do we continue and finish early or do we take a break now and then come back?
Continue and finish early.
Continue. Do I hear everybody saying the same thing? All right.
Yes,
Everybody
miss.
want to sleep all of a sudden. All right. Why is this giving me this now? Whatever that is supposed to be. All right. So let me share my next PowerPoint. And I'm not so sure why I didn't send it to Sip earlier. Because he's already from pretty early this morning. All right. I should have sent it. Slideshow. This one is not very long, just 33 slides, so we should finish well ahead of time. So we are going to look at report writing, something that nobody likes to do. You will agree with me why I'm desisting up here. I really want this. All right. You'll agree with me that the strength of many community workers lies in their ability to unite around a common cause. So we are able to organize communities to organize around a common cause. We are able to mobilize the community by helping them to identify their needs and to organize these into priorities in terms of how we are going to address them. We are very good at helping to move the mobilization of resources to get things done. Planning and implementing intervention program, we on the ball with that. Guiding communities through development project, yeah, we have that part. But I've been done all of the nice work. I've been done all of the hard work. There is a part to it that none of us want to do, and that is writing the report, a very important component of it. So we may even do our evaluation, do all of those things, but it is not just to sit down and put together that which you would have done to document so that yes, you can have proof that the thing was actually done. We don't like to do that. So we have what you call a dreaded air task of writing the report. How do we view this task? Do we see it? I should have asked everybody before. How do you view writing your report? Cindy, when you have those reports to write, how do you see it? How do you feel about it?
I just feel fed up.
You feel fed up?
Yeah, sometimes I
Jody?
feel especially in nursing, you feel like if you're doing things repetitively. Some of them I know it's report is important, especially based on certain jobs, but some of the information I don't
Every
think,
bit of information you put on that piece of paper is
you
important.
know, is necessary, and I don't know.
Jody, how
I
do
have
you
no
feel about
I
writing reports? Sorry, Cindy.
It just has to get done. There's something you have to do.
Now I'm going to let the class in put a little secret about Jody. Jody don't like to write. I'm serious. Jody does not like to write.
Agreed.
She's a woman of very few words.
I get to the point quickly.
That's a nice way of putting it. That's a nice way of putting it. But sometimes we need a little more meat on the bone. Daniel, how do you feel about writing reports?
I absolutely abhor it. I mean, I get paid, what, 8 to 5? I'm currently here after 5 because I still have notes to write up. I don't know.
Okay, Melissa, as a nurse.
No, I'm not a nurse. I don't have to do a lot of it in my line of work, but yeah, when you have to, it's more of a burden more than anything else. But as Daniel said, you have to get it done. And it's worse when you let it pile up on you. So might as well do it daily. Easier said than done, but I guess that's the best way.
Krishna,
Yeah, have to get it done. So you just have to bend your mind to it and try to tackle it as it comes and as fast as you can.
do you think that your supervisors are wicked to just simply ask you to write a report if they couldn't skip that part of it?
Only if you know
Somebody
them don't
answer
read
the
it.
question.
Only if they don't read it. But sometimes they write and they don't read it, you know.
It's true now because they come back and ask you for information that would have been in the report already. So every minute they're coming back and ask you for the same data that you would have
Yeah,
already reported
that's how you
on.
know they do. That's how you know they're not reading it.
And
This
how do
was
you feel
that
about
report
writing a
everything
report
feedback.
after that? When you realize that they're not reading them?
Well, you probably won't put as much effort into it. You just do something to say that you did something. Can them not
Yeah,
read it?
me let you guys into a
The
little secret.
report come when it come at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta start drop your hands after a while.
We had an unfortunate situation in Jamaica some years ago. We had a girls' home and there was a fire there. And some of the girls got seriously injured. I think we'd have lost one. I think a loved one or two died. And there was a commission of inquiry regarding the home and what was happening there. I think it was Armadale, it was the name of that home, girls' home.
Yes, miss.
Many heads roll, but the matron's head didn't get touched. You know why? Because when they call a commission of inquiry into the incident, matron walked in with her file and piled from here to the ceiling. Matron documented every single thing, even though the authorities were not paying her any mind. She was very meticulous and she was very consistent. So at the end of that inquiry, even the commissioner was removed, but Metron heads could not be touched because Metron documented everything. So I know the feeling when it comes to writing report, but I want to say to you, for heaven's sake, put those feelings aside and put pen to paper. Nothing can be black and white. We are also living now in an environment where everybody is finding a lawyer. And when they find that lawyer, you cannot go back and write what you should have written those days ago, because that is not going to call tampering with the evidence or tampering with the file. So as tedious and as frustrating as it might be, you may recognize that you supervisors are not reading the reports, but do not stop documenting. On a personal note, when I started working on the field, the Services Commission said that if you are working in a clear vacancy for more than 6 months, you ought to be appointed in the post. I was working in a very clear vacancy for more than 6 months. And when I asked about my appointment, I was getting the runaround. And so I wrote a letter. It so happened that the letter reached the head office, which was the Ministry of Health head office at the time, and the person whose desk it landed on asked for two things. She wanted my report from the year before, and she wanted my current program of activities for the year. If I had not done a comprehensive report that reflect all of what I was doing, I would not have any time to go back and rewrite that for submission because she was asking to be sent what was already in the filing cabinet. So even when you're writing your report, sometimes, Jody, you talk about getting to the point, and no, there are times when you need to provide details because it can come back to haunt you if you don't do that. So as tedious as the reports are, think about the worst case scenario, what can happen, and if you don't have proper documentation, what it is going to mean for you. So we need to write our reports. And we are going to be looking at some of the reasons why the reports are important, but I just share that with you at the start for you to understand that if you are asked to do these reports, though you may not like doing them, there are good reasons why you need to do them, if for nothing else, for personal protection to cover your back. Because you never know what can happen. So you need to cover
Especially in
your
the
back,
medical field.
especially in the medical field. So you may
I
do it.
do I do
But
good reports, my reports are very detailed because I recognize that there are legal documents. And as you say, you have to cover your back at all times. And sometimes one thing doctors would say, nurses write everything.
yeah, write everything.
Even if you call and you get a verbal order as reported or as verbally requested by XYZ at what time, because at the end of the day, no one can say you never did this and you never did that. And at one point, I do a part-time job at a resort, and we had an issue, and the couple refused certain treatment, made certain decisions, and later on in the night, they end up pass. The guy end up pass, and it's that same report writing that saved the medical aspect of the result because the report was so detailed that they could not have find anything to debunk anything other statements. So
Or
I
sue the
know the
resort.
importance, and I do good reporting. My reports are always on time, but it's still tedious and it still feel repetitive
Yes.
sometimes. But I know the importance.
And
So
I'm glad you know
yeah.
that happened and you did not find yourself on the wrong side of the thing because it can happen and it happens at times. Sometimes even some of these cases that go to court and because the police them not know this documentation business, them not have a leg to stand on. And then when the judge has no choice but to release the criminals, them same one complain that them are doing amount of work out there and them just a let but them not doing them paperwork. They are not doing their paperwork. And the judge cannot sentence somebody minus that paperwork. They need the information. So it is very, very important. So though we may view the task as boring, laborious, annoying, it is tedious, but it's a duty that must be done because of or we see it as a tedious duty that must be done because of some stupid organizational policy. And we bring every time the report is to be written. But as you would have Cindy, in that particular life experience, you have seen the value of it based on what you would have encountered during your time at that resort. So we need to look on the brighter side. Writing reports can be challenging, but it can also be interesting. It can also be fun. Report is not a separate piece of thing from the real work, but in fact an integral part of the work, and it is useful and it is also valuable. What are reports? So we're talking about reports. What are these things? They are summaries or records of the results of activities that communicate process, progress, achievements, and where necessary, if there are barriers and constraints, those need to be documented too. So even when you have carried out some of your activities in your workspaces and you have to write that report, we have a tendency to only document the brighter side, but if there are challenges, those things need to be recorded. Because when you're talking about the need for extra resources to carry out your task, if you have not documented the negative side of things, you will not be able to demand what you want. So do not see the negative aspect of it as a blot against you, but as a valuable bit of information to be used as a trump card going forward, especially when it comes to demand for resources. Too often we only want to document the pretty part of it, but the other part we see it as an indictment against us, and we need to stop looking at it from that perspective. Document, be it good or bad, let it be there in black and white. Reports give life to your hard work as they highlight the degree to which objectives have been met, the reasons why. It also provides assessment of the factors that may hinder the achievement, and it can also point to recommendations for action. So, you do your report for record keeping. You do it to keep others informed. You do it to highlight successes and failure. And depending on where you're working, like if you're a nurse or a doctor, the information is that docket is going to be extremely valuable and important for continuity of patient care. So you have to document. There may be somebody coming behind you. They need to see that information. What was done before? How was it done? What did we achieve? What did we not achieve? What were the gaps why we didn't achieve what we want to achieve? And when you have all of those documentation, you're going off and leave. You don't have to worry because the information is there as reviewership. So persons can look at it and can see how to continue moving forward, even though you are physically not in that space. It also helps to track your progress. For those persons who are getting funding, they found that the funders need to see what is happening. They need to hear what is happening. And if that is not documented, then they may not want to continue providing that little bit of resources that you actually need for your two success stories to continue to be successful. It serves also as a means of encouragement for others. When they see what has been done, what can be done, how it was done, it can have put a little wind beneath their wings so that they too can soar and carry on. It provides guidelines for others who are coming behind you. Nothing beats that report that you can go and look back at to see what was done. God forbid some of us sometimes drop dead on the work. But if there's no documentation, the person who's going to have to take up that slot have absolutely no idea where to go and what to do. They are groping into the dark until they can get things done. If documentation is there, some of the activities that they would have tried to engage in, they would not have bothered because those things would have already been done and they do not want to reinvent the wheel. It determines further actions or modification, and of course, your report can serve as a very valuable evaluation tool. So we ride them. So if we are riding a bicycle, because we see where the wheel is going, we stay on track with our programs when we are able to see where we are and where we need to go. So this is called a monitoring of your progress, and it is something that we need to do. A project, it is said, is not complete unless it is monitored, and that monitoring must be recorded and communicated. That communication is also what you would call a report. Document, document, document. What do we use these reports for? Sometimes they may be needed to satisfy legal requirements, as would have been exampled in the by what I'm seeing this year. They could not sue the resort because everything was documented, it was detailed, and so they had that to be the wind beneath their wings in the face of litigation. To aid in the identification and prioritization of health problems for those of us who are in health, those reports are what feed into the Ministry of Health that guides the priorities that are set for upcoming period. It also lends itself in terms of the division of the scarce resources, in terms of how much is allocated when and where and how. It also serves to evaluate the effectiveness and efficiency of programs. Is my program going the way it ought to be going? Am I achieving the objectives? If I am not achieving them, what are the reasons why these are not being achieved? Those reports help to provide you with those vital information. And it also forms the basis and our foundation for planning as you go forward. It also helps to eliminate the need for continuous field research because when you have that information, you don't have to be doing that same research over and over and over. It provides information on the achievements that you have had. It serves as a stimulant for action. It also provides answers to questions. And of course, it also helps to monitor the performance of officers. And more I hear government talking about moving forward towards performance pay. And what they're saying is that the salary that they want to pay you is going to be hinged to your performance. It has been resisted and it is going to take a very long time before it can be implemented. But we have to remember it doesn't mean that it may not happen. And one of the drawbacks that a lot of persons will have about it is that you can be working extremely hard. You're giving your 120 and 100 and more. And because of interpersonal relationship with a supervisor, they may want to give a performance evaluation that is really not in keeping with the output from you, but because they want to be a little bit vindictive. So there are issues that needs to be given consideration. What should you think about when you're writing your report? You need to know your audience and the
About,
needs
sorry, I
of
have a
your readers.
question.
Go ahead.
I'm curious about the whole performance and in terms of pay and performance, because if it is that there's already a structure where it is that they have their PMAS system in terms of like the performance appraisal kind of thing, what more, I guess, performance are they basically trying to measure and then use as a metric?
All right. We do have PMAS. But PMAS does not determine your remuneration package.
I mean, it can because you have the threshold where it is that you can be recommended if it is a going to go up in like a salary point scale, if it is a going to stay at the current one, or if it is that you might even go back in terms of like the salary point scale. So
Oh, so I didn't know that that started implementing that component.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. So that's
I
a
can look back at
performance,
it.
that's a performance pay. So you can
Yeah,
try to get a salary increase, yes or no.
yeah. So that's how I was trying to work out like what more performance is he trying to, or productivity is he trying to measure, or are they trying to institute measuring? So.
It's really basically that, they're going to be paying you based on what they deemed to be your performance as to whether or not you should be given an increment and that kind of thing. And a lot of persons have been resisting it. And one of the reasons for that is because they do know that they have some supervisors who are really and truly can be vindictive. And in the same breath, you also have the whole issue of nepotism that exists. So you can have persons who are really underperforming, but because of the relationship or the friendship, they get promoted to another pay scale when in truth and in fact, they probably don't even earn the one that they were getting before. So we have also all of those logistics that do exist out there. But I realize that they are moving more and more towards that PMAS system and moving away from the old performance assessment system. All right. You need to consider some things when you're writing your report. You need to know your audience and the needs of your readers. Who am I writing this for? And we need to write in easy to read, simple language because you never know who may need to pick up that report and read it. And we don't want it to be such that they don't understand a thing that they see. Granted, you have some reports that are going to be highly technical, but of course, again, it depends on the audience it is intended for. So if it is really for technical people, then the language will be fine within that technical area, but for others, it may be a challenge. But you have to write for the audience who is actually going to be utilizing your report. Jody, you need to be brief, but you also need to be complete. You hear?
I hear.
I know you seriously like to be brief, but you also need to be complete. Accuracy is really very important in our reports. As I said before, even if things are not going the way you'd have liked them to have gone, still document what actually happened. Because if you don't do that and it is discovered, then it can be an indictment against you. Organization of your reports. You need to look at how you are going to do it out. You are going to have outlines, or you're going to have subheadings and subtitles. And please, 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 whatever your name is going to be attached to, let the presentation reek of professionalism. When I was marking the UMatter assignments, it was such a stress. Why? Because so many persons submitted their assignment and they didn't even take time out to write even their first name on it or their ID number. So I would have been just clicking and printing, and then now when I finish marking, I need to go and record the grade. I realize that I don't have no name, I know nothing on some of the documents. Now I have to go back through the emails now to identify the persons. Don't do this to your lecturers, please. Always have your name and your ID number, preferably a cover page. Your assignments that you are submitting. Really, really very important. So even as we talk and we stress that is also a part of the preparation that when you go back into your spaces, or some of you are already still there, when you're asked to submit a report, you do it in such a way that it speaks and reeks of professionalism in how you are doing that present, because it's like a presentation that you are doing. So put your best foot forward when you're writing your reports and you're going to be submitting those. What is the reader's interest in the subject or the program? How much does the reader know about the program? And because it's how much they know, sometimes we use that as the benchmark for what we put into the report. But give complete report as best as you can. Because the person that you think may be the one reading it, it may be passed on to somebody else who are not au fait with the program that you are doing. So they also need to get that bit of information. So when you do that complete report, then they can see that. Some years ago, one of my supervisors, when I was on the field, tell me that she just want like a 1 pager or 2 pager for my report. And I looked at her and asked her, what? Because health promotion is a qualitative work. Though we need quantitative information to help us to do what we do, it is primary qualitative. So for the life of me, I could not see, oh, after I've done a year's work, that is going to be recorded on 2 or 3 pages. So what I did my full report, which unfortunately for her was like 15 pages long. And I said, Miss, you can pick whatever you want from it, but I'm submitting a full report. Sometimes supervisors may ask you to do the shortcoming, but at the end of the day, something you must keep in mind, when push comes to shove, you are the one who will have to give an account because that report came from your desk. So sometimes a shortcut is not in your best interest. We also need to have that aside. We also need to consider how many persons other than the intended receiver may be reading the report. So sometimes when you write those reports and submit them, you don't even have any idea how far reaching they are going to be. You just want to submit to your supervisor, but you don't even think about the other areas and departments and further up the ladder where that report may actually end. So how do we report? Some reports move vertically. They move from your desk to your supervisor to somebody above that person. Or sometimes it can go horizontally. Persons who are along the same continuum as yourself on that organizational chart, they may need to get a copy of your report. And sometimes your reports are radial, meaning that they go external to the organization. So within the Ministry of Health now, we have the PSOJ group that sometimes our reports have to go to them because they were the engine behind the development of Vision 2030, that particular document. So they are actually tracking the progress of the implementations of the things that are within that document. And so the report also must go to them, even though we are held, for them to see whether or not that component is being achieved, and if it is being done in a timely manner. If it is not being achieved, what are the barriers that are there? And so we sometimes the reports don't just stay within our organization, it goes external to the organization. And for those persons who may take an organization to court and the court may demand that report, then that would also be a radial movement of that report. Who are the persons who benefit from the report? The first person who should benefit from that report is you, the author of that report, because it is going to speak a lot about you. The documentation and the way it has been done and all of those things, it says something about you. So you're the first beneficiary. Then the communities that you are working with will also benefit because they would have now done the work, and it is documented and recorded so that others can see the great things that they would have done. Other communities benefit because when they see or hear about this report, it can create a little healthy jealousy, and they too may want to embark on some programs similar to what the report is all about. Researchers and you doing your research will appreciate the value of documentation because you are able to go and find information to speak into your literature review. If these persons were not documenting, then you'd have had nothing to actually go and reflect on to do what you are doing. Donors and contributors, they always want to get their report because they want to see whether or not there's any return on their investment and if it is worth continuing to fund or if they should stop and move on. So those reports are very important. And for our government, it is extremely important for both centrally and locally because it should guide the policies and the other things that are coming out of the various government departments in the country. How does the author learn and hold communication skill? This is how does the author benefit from writing a report? It helps you to own and learn your communication skill, put them into action, to identify successes and failures, to identify strengths and weaknesses. So it helps, that report can help you to also do a quick SWOT analysis. It arranges and organizes the information in a very valuable way. Missing data can be identified. It also helps in analysis and assessment. It makes it much easier. And of course, it clarifies relationship between the input and the output. It removes bias from self-assessment, which is what we hope to do, but sometimes this one is not so easy to get around. It allows you to make recommendations, and you can lead you to modify objective and strategies and activities going forward. And it also provides feedback in terms of advice, experience, and recommendations that are coming from you. The community likewise also benefit because they see progress taking place. They also are encouraged to participate, and it can sometimes stimulate interest. And of course, it generates a sense of happiness that somebody really cares. Seeing and hearing about other communities' progress can be a stimulant to raise awareness, and it also energizes other communities to take similar action in their areas. For the researchers, where written reports are a resource of research data, and as I said before, for our founders and donors and contributors, it keeps them abreast of how their money is being spent and how well their efforts and labor is making a difference. Government, on the other hand, it provides vital information that are needed to guide planning, policy, and monitoring. And of course, if you listen to the news sometimes, you will hear what happened in the Public Accounts Committee here in Jamaica, where people have to go into the House of Parliament to account for their stewardship of the government funds that was placed in their interest for them to do something. Examples of type of reports that we often are asked to do. There is progress report, which means a monthly, bi-monthly, and quarterly reports. Sometimes you're doing a community project and a report is needed. Sometimes you have done some community mobilization and you're asked to document and report. field trip, workshop report, meetings. And when we talk about field trip and workshop, often when your organization would have allowed you to go on any of these ventures, when you come back, they expect you to write a report to share what the time was, in all the time was spent and what was gained and what is it that is expected of you going forward. So sometimes you're asked to write these things when you go. Progress report. These reports relate activities to objectives. So we're looking at types of report. The most important source of information about any program, and it also allows the stakeholders to know how well and how much the project activities would have led to the attainment of the objectives. So it distinguishes really between your activities, which is your inputs, and the result of these activities, which would be your outputs. A good report will analyze the results of the activity. So you don't just write the report, you are going to analyze the information. And this should answer the question, how far did the program objectives where not they were achieved. So to the extent to which they were achieved, this analysis should be there, and it move beyond mere description of activities in your reports. That is what you are being encouraged to do some analysis of the reports as you would have written them for submission. The main objective of writing reports is to report on your activities, which is a double thing there. Yeah. Therefore, some amount of analysis that goes beyond the mere description of your activities is often very necessary. How do you write the reports? They should be correctly identified. So your report should come with a title page. So it would have a title. It should say what period the report is for, the date and location of the report, and who is submitting the report, and your job title and functions. That cover page, when anybody pick up a report, you should have a good idea who wrote this report. So we need to look at some of that. What information needs to be in your report? Can give a brief background to the program, state what the objectives were, what activities were carried out. So you look at your input, you look at your output, and you also look at your outcome. What was achieved from your output? So what happened in these meetings? So is that okay to say, Jody? And I'm picking on Jody like crazy this evening. Is that okay to say, oh, I attended 3 meetings and leave it at that? What was discussed in the meetings? What decisions were taken in the meetings? That bit of information need to be documented. So is that okay, the supervisor is going to say that you attend 3 meetings. They need to know what happened in those 3 meetings. So we need to put a little bit more information. You hear, Jody? You see how much I'm encouraging you to start writing a little bit more?
Thank you. I'm trying.
Indicators. What? So I use this as an example. So you write a report about Girls' Day. What about Girls' Day? Something is about immunization training. What about it? How many persons were trained? What background these persons were from? What is expected of them after they have been trained? So we need to get a little bit of substance. Are there barriers? We need to know if any of those exist and if we anticipate any going forward. What possible solution can you arrive at or suggest to overcome these barriers? And of course, what is going to be done in the next period? So, as a promotion specialist, when you go out there on your internship, when you come in for your monthly seminars, you are going to be saying as part of that monthly seminar, what are your projections for the next month that you are going into. That information needs to be there. And I will be having a meeting with persons who are going out on internship prior to them going out to remind you of what the expectations are and the documentation and all of the things that you are expected to produce when you are out there. Your reporting format is going to depend on the type and purpose of your report, who your intended audience is going to be, and so on, as well as the layout prescribed by your organization, because there are some organization who will give you a template and expect you to use that template for your reporting. When they do that, they really kind of lock you in a box because it's a format you just fill out and you can't go edgewise in terms of providing additional information. But whatever the organization give us guideline that needs to be followed. Remember, writing reports need not be boring. Look upon the task as a challenge, and reports should compare what was wanted with what was achieved, analyze the reasons, and you can also make recommendations for future action. Remember, it is said that a job is not finished until the paperwork is done. So although we
This
may
means
not,
it's a weird item, so
the thing is that when I come across anything, I have several PowerPoint folders with hundreds of these things in them. And so
so it would
whenever I have
appear.
presentations to do, I just go into my archive and look what will fit with what I am doing. Yeah. So I see I have a teaching background, and I usually teach at a primary school, and as primary school teachers we learn to find use for everything. So I find my cue from there. And I don't like boring presentations. I might sound boring when I'm presenting it, but the slide shouldn't look boring. Okay? So the job is not finished until all the paperwork is done. All right. I wanted just to do this little thing here. I think I'm going to skip it. And I think this is my last slide. Danielle, are you still on board?
Why you skip it, me?
You know why I skip it? Because I never look for the answers.
Oh, you didn't look for that. Okay.
And so like the first one would be F 5T on a F is what? It's a puzzle. I don't remember all of them out of my head, But we'll see.
That's a foot. It's a toe. We're talking about 5 toes and a foot.
5 toes and a foot. Yeah, Daniel got that one right. 11P in a FST. I don't remember that one, to be honest with you. I don't remember that one. I don't remember some of them. Because I've not used it in such a long time. I don't remember some of them. But I'm going to let it stay right there and go look up the answers. I have the answer somewhere, but I just don't remember them. But that first one, Daniela, you get it right. 5 toes on a foot. So when you get your slides, you can have fun deciphering them. All right? You want to agree with this one, Daniel?
It's true. This is very true.
Ladies,
I
this
can't
is
tell you what
true.
it is that we're looking forward to. Well, I don't know. I feel like this might be the only thing that made me looking forward to next year.
So I'm kind of wondering what happened after 2006, though.
The line will be empty.
I'm
COVID,
really
we were never
wondering what
aware of it. We never
It
met
might
over
just
where.
it might just be the line,
it might just be the line that
Precisely,
That's
is
strange.
left.
precisely. It's the line. It's just the line. There's nothing there.
There's nothing left. So this one, they said it is proof that there is global warming. And I believe those are my few words for this evening. We're supposed to finish at 9 o'clock. We're finished at
Miss,
6:20.
in the 18th century, they probably had a lot of UTIs.
I never thought of it that way at all.
Watch away, watch heat.
Oh, my word. So I have completed my 2 presentations for the afternoon. I can't believe that we have gone through them so quickly. But it means that you are free for the rest of the night. And I'll make sure that I send these off now so that you can get them. So if there are no questions, if there are no comments, I am very happy to say have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you, Miss. Daniel, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure.
No, the pleasure was all mine. Feel reinvigorated. Thanks.
Have a wonderful evening,
And
guys.
he learned something that he had not planned for this evening. You know,
Eh,
it was nice having him.
Daniel 2027 would be great.
So have a good evening, everybody.
Bye, guys.
You
All
too, man.
right.
Bye.